you so much for So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another podcast from Nepean Capital. Today we have with us Rajeev Chaba, the CEO Emeritus of one of India's fastest growing car companies, JSW MG Motors. Before we start, I would request everyone to please mute their audio. And once we're done, we'll open it up for Q&A, and you can post your questions on the chat below, and I will go ahead and ask those questions. So, Rajeev, thank you once again for joining our podcast. You have had a very remarkable career, having worked also in China, North Africa, and Egypt besides India. Can you tell us a little bit about that and your journey from the time you graduated from IIM Bangalore and what basically got you into this field in the first place?
Right. So thanks a lot, Gautam, for inviting me, and thanks all the ladies and gentlemen to suffer me today for some time. Suffer me gladly, hopefully. So I am Bangalore. I did my MBA, and through campus I got into Eicher tractors actually. So that's how I got into auto to start with. Though I liked auto in my engineering, I had taken automotive as elective, and then. By chance, I got a job with Toyota franchise in Middle East within 2.5 years of joining Eicher. So I went to Dubai with this Toyota franchisee. Came back to India, joined General Motors. I was the first employee in GM in sales and marketing. And some of you may recall, who are Indians on the call, that we launched Opel Astra. So I was instrumental in launching Opel Astra. That was the Mercedes of its time. And then we launched Chevy. In the meantime, I got transferred to Japan. So I lived in Japan too. So from Dubai to India to Japan, I was head of sales and marketing for Japan operations, Cadillac, and all the brands, Opel, Chevy, Cadillac, and Saab of GM I was selling there. Then I came back to India, became Chief Operating Officer for GM India, then became CEO of GM India, then got transferred to Egypt. In 2007, I was heading GM operations in Egypt. Then we did some consolidation in Africa, so I became in charge for North Africa, and then went to China. China was the biggest market for GM that one of time, and still it is. Not in the last 2-3 months, I am not sure, but because China, there's a massacre now in the automotive, there's a bloodbath. But it was the #1 market for GM for many years. So I was there during that time, then left GM in 2013, joined a private equity company as an operating guy for some time. It was a family-owned office in London. They bought an asset in LA, which was a different sector altogether, logistics sector. So they made me chief transformation officer of that company in LA. So I managed that for some time. Then I had the need to come back to India, and as the luck would have been, SAIC, which is the owner of MG brand in China. So they were planning to come to India, and thanks to my connections in China with these guys, they offered me, and I said, listen, I had some terms and conditions, and I wanted autonomy and full power to operate, and they gave me that. And then we started MG here. So I was the first guy in MG and was alone for 1 year, and then made the team, bought the plant, had portfolio, ran it, and then went towards EV. And then we had geopolitical issues. So now we have got an Indian partner, JSW. So yeah, that's what the journey has been so far.
That's amazing. I mean, this is, all over the place, and obviously across various OEMs. So it's not just limited to one or two, automobile companies. So what do you think were your key learnings from your experience before you joined MG?
Yeah, so because I worked in many countries, and as you can imagine, again, I'm not boasting of that, but just to give the perspective that GM also purchased Daewoo, which is Korean. So, and those Korean products we were launching in India as Chevrolet, so I used to go to Korea a lot. And Opel is German, so I went to Germany a lot during my initial Opel years. And GM is American, so, I went to Detroit many times. So, I got a pretty good idea about the cost structure, about the people, about the customers, about certain practices. So a few things which stand out in my mind is that there is more in common among us as humans than uncommon things. Typically we talk about how we are different. But as a business, I would like to believe there's a lot of commonality, a lot of common beliefs, and that's what we need to look at, and that's what the opportunity is. So that's one big learning.
Sure.
Other thing is, all of us human beings want to be respected and want to treat each other well, right? So the trust and mutual respect as two dimensions of human, I think, are pretty important, whatever the country, nationality, caste, color, creed, maybe, and um, I think that's very important for interpersonal skills and things like that when you're operating in the global environment, I think. And that's a lesson even in India. India is so diverse, like, North India is different than South India. And
Yeah.
within South India, you have four states. Like, so the trust and mutual respect, I think. Another thing which frankly hit me was the countries which progress well. They place a lot of importance, or more importance than India, on diversity in general and gender diversity in particular.
Yeah.
And the country cannot grow if the other half is not made part of official economy, formal economy of a country. So I think
Sure.
we learn a lot, and that's why gender diversity becomes very important. One or two more things on the business related side, I would say. Mm, Only growth is sustain. If you want to have a sustainable business model, only it can be based on growth and not on cost cutting.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do these mistakes of cost cutting and we feel cost cutting will make us competitive. Cost cutting is very important tool strategically in certain times, but not strategically, tactically, I should say, but growth is the only way you can have a sustainable business model. So, and not the cost cutting. So sometimes we pay a lot of attention to finance folks, but I think the growth is the biggest thing. One Yeah, and one other thing I would say is that, again, for any business model, you need to have what I learned is a differentiator in your business. The
Yeah.
low cost model is not a differentiator. It's the need, probably, in the
Yeah.
lowest cost for your commodities, for your inputs and everything. But that cannot be a differentiator in your business. It has to be a value proposition, something. So these are some of the things which I learned.
Interesting. And what of this are you actually employing, or did you start employing when you started MG? I mean, again, as you said, you spoke about diversity, you spoke about the difference in the north and south of India, again, culturally different. I don't know when it comes to automobiles, if people look at, cars differently necessarily, but what are some of these learnings that you employed, that have been employing rather at MG?
Gautam, I can write a chapter on this, and I can go on and on. And my problem is the time is limited. And
Yeah.
but just to give you some numbers, okay, just to throw some numbers. I was very clear that gender diversity to start with has to be 30% on the day one. I'm so
Sure.
happy to tell you and the group here, we are 43% right now in automotive, probably the best in the world. 43%, including manufacturing. Okay, I'm not talking about blue. I'm not talking about the white collar. The white collar, blue collar, we are 43% are female. These young females, like they're welding, they're painting, they're doing the tire assembly and everything. So we are
Wow.
known for that. But within the diversity in general, just to give a small idea, that because I came from GM and few guys I picked up from my GM days, but I was so clear that it should not become another GM company. So people had to take approval to recruit any GM guy from me personally. And then we said auto, non-auto. Within auto, two-wheeler and four-wheeler. Within
Yeah.
four-wheeler, we said GM, Ford, Toyota, Maruti, Hyundai, and still, by the way, we track that number, right? So I'm happy to say 38 or 39% of the people are from non-auto in MG. 43% we are females. And GM is one of the lowest now. So Tata and Mahindra are more in our company than GM now. So that's how it is.
Interesting. How do you collaborate with SAIC on technology, marketing, branding? I mean, how does that work with respect to the MG Motor India operations?
So, as long as so let me talk about MG 1.0, where it was 100% owned by SIC. Now it's MG 2.0 when we have JSW as partner. So MG 1.0, when SAIC was 100% owning MG India, then we were their company. But like
Yeah.
any multinational, and that happens in all the companies in all the industries, you have various agreements with the parent company. So you have TLAs, technical agreements, you have parts agreements, you have you have technical know-how agreement and things like that. So every car line has got agreements which tells you about what all you can get and how do you localize, how do you get the technology. So we have just rolled over that to JSW MG as part MG 2.0. So it's a kind of a perpetuity kind of thing. And when the new car gets launched, we have the same agreement. So it's a car line by car line. We have the launch, we have the agreements, and that's how we are governed. So it's like any multinational in any industry.
Well, I think, like I said at the outset, you're one of the fastest growing car companies in India. So in a very short span of time, you've actually gotten in terms of mind share, in terms of market share and everything. Going forward, where do you see this with respect to strengthening your distribution? What are going to be the most important focus areas for the firm to basically scale up, as you've once said before, to 300,000 units a year of sales and beyond?
So Gautam, I don't know it's a good news or bad news. Our mind share is more than actual share, actual market share, frankly,
Sure.
because the way we have positioned ourselves and my clear thing was, and this is what I talked to my bosses in China earlier, and I'm clear with Mr. Jindal also, and Sajjan Jindal, who's our partner, that listen, if you look at the Indian market, and still this I'm talking 6 years back, 7 years back when we started MG operations, but even right now, it's actually ruled by four players. So one is Maruti, and Toyota has joined hands with Maruti, so that has become one group now. Hyundai and
Yeah.
Kia has joined hands with Hyundai, but they're the same company. Sorry, so that's another group. And then Mahindra and Tata, the two Indian conglomerates, right?
Yeah.
Apart from that, in my humble opinion, nobody is there on top of consumer mind. So what would you do? What would you different as an outsider to establish yourself in consumers' mind and
Yeah.
be in their recall list? So I used to be very clear, and I used to tell my bosses, we are not going to launch any vanilla product. It has to be differentiated. So if you guys recall the first product, Hector, what we launched, it really disrupted the market and it raised the bar in terms of what's hygiene in any product of that segment, right? And
Yeah.
then we launched the EV. Mind it, in 2020, just before COVID, when we launched EV, that point of time, there was no EV in the market for individuals except one Mahindra Verito, which was a fleet car.
Yeah.
And and for that, you can imagine our gestation period for the car launch is approximately 2 years. So we conceived that in 2018 when nobody in India was talking about EV. So we said technology and innovation is our number one pillar for MG.
Sure.
Number two, we said unique customer experience, and we have been number one in customer satisfaction, sales after sales, both continuously since our inception. Number three, we said gender diversity, and fourth, we said community service. So the
Yeah.
last two parts, community service and all, we said is there to attract the youngsters in our company, because youngsters want to make the impact meaningfully right now when they are 25, 26, not like my age when you become 50 plus and then you start thinking of giving back to society. So those are the pillars. Now how do we go forward? That was the question. Sorry, I've taken time to explain the context. Now
Go
in
ahead. Yeah.
2.0, MG 2.0, and want to take it forward, then basically we have to scale up our operations. We need to expand the capacity. As we speak, we are doing that from 1 lakh to 3 lakh cars per year. And then we have to have portfolio. We are very clear we are going to get new energy vehicles. In fact, one car we have just launched a few weeks back, and today the formal openings have happened. Windsor, which again has probably disrupted the EV market, in my
Yeah.
opinion, and time will tell like how successful is that. But I think that's another Hector movement, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So differentiated products, new energy vehicles, compelling proposition to consumer, and expansion of plant, and obviously expansion of network. All these are part of our scaling up now.
I think your model of the new battery rental, I think is unique. You think in some sense the Indian consumer have they reacted positively to this? I mean, because this is when there's something that as interesting as this, there's always a little pushback initially. Oh, is this going to make sense? Will this fly? And how did you even come up with this proposition?
So, Gautam, that's interesting. Yeah, there are category barriers to adopt EV, and one is the initial acquisition price, then there's a battery life, then there's a
Yeah.
range anxiety, and the resale price. These are the four very top level category barriers in consumers' mind. So in India, the EV penetration is only 2% right now.
Yeah.
There are 6 or 7% people who are on the fringe, want to buy, but if they get addressed one or all of these four category barriers. The initial acquisition price is very important because people think EV is costly. So with Windsor, when we're launching, we came out with this idea that let's at least do apple to apple compare with an ICE car.
Yeah.
So basically, we said Windsor is, let's say, 10 lakhs of rupees, 9.99. So it's 9.99 is the pricing of the car, and then you pay for the battery and charge the battery. Let's compare this for a second with the equivalent ICE car. So when
Yeah.
you say 9.99, it means you're going to get Hyundai Venue or Sonnet or Maruti Brezza, which is a small car. So you get 10 lakhs equivalent that kind of a car, and then you have to fill petrol, right? Now,
Yeah.
petrol, suppose you drive 1,000 kilometers, which means 75 or 80 liters of petrol, which means around 7 to 8,000 rupees of petrol you're putting in that car. Now compare that to Windsor, which is a one segment bigger than those cars. So you're getting a bigger car for 10 lakhs. And battery rental, we are saying, is 3.5 rupees per kilometer. So for 1,000 rupees, you pay 3,500 rupees, and 1 rupee is approximately charging. So you pay 4,500 rupees for battery renting and charging compared to 7 to 8,000 rupees of petrol, and you end up buying a bigger car. So actually, this whole deal, the battery as a service, enables you to start having conversation, right?
Yeah.
People start talking. People start comparing that, hey, how does it compare with an ICE engine? And lots of people may not end up taking this proposition because once they get to know that battery, and then we had to declare the price of the overall car, which is 13.5 lakhs. So now
Yeah.
you can take out that 3.5 lakhs is the battery. Some guys will say, okay, we understood the math. I think it's good, but I'm going to finance the whole car as one, not
Yeah.
battery separate. So the whole thing was, it started conversation. Frankly, the kind of buzzword we created was overwhelming. And as I told you that, the kind of reaction what we have got today, as we speak, is the first day of booking, and we have got, I think, 12,000 bookings already on the first day. So I think this is
Congratulations.
considering
Yeah.
it's EV. Yeah, thanks a lot. So I think it's pretty good. So, and then we were getting ready for the other cars also. So on Comet and ZS EV, the other two EVs also, we have done the
Yeah.
same thing. I hope the industry follows it. I think they will follow it. And then
Yeah.
collectively in your community in finance, as we say, mutual fund, when all the players got together and promoted mutual fund as a category, it took off.
Yeah.
Likewise, I feel all the EV guys come together and say EV sahi hai kind of a campaign, probably it should take off.
That's interesting because on the EV front, there have been basically two models. One is the United States, where Tesla started this, and then, of course, others tried to follow. They've been semi-successful. And then the other model is China, where EVs are now more than 52% of monthly sales, whereas sales in Europe and the US, especially the West, are basically starting to come off. So what model do you think eventually will work for India? Because it's, again, a bit of a chicken and the egg with respect to the charging station infrastructure, which is not fully there yet. And, I'm sure a lot of people are apprehensive about whether they should buy one or not.
I think one thing is very clear globally as well as in India. EVification will happen. It's a irreversible and inevitable thing to happen. It's a question of time. In
Yeah.
India, typically, infrastructure, supply and demand happens almost at the same time, or sometimes supply comes after demand, unfortunately. Like you take airports, so demand is created first, and then the airports get developed. The roads, the demand is there and roads get developed later. China infrastructure happens first, and then demand comes later. So India is that unique model, we all know, right? So this is a ongoing journey. It's evolving as we speak. Still there are a lot of doubts, still there are a lot of naysayers, and there are a lot of myths, and there are some genuine issues. So as far as the infrastructure is concerned in India, the typical model, which again we started and everybody else seems to be doing, that is that we said, along with the car, we are going to give you a charger, and that's a marketing gimmick. We're saying it's free of cost, though it's part of the overall cost, obviously. But we say charger is free. We give you a charger, and we install it also free at your residence or office, wherever you want.
Okay.
So in fact, we had to start some startups. We had to encourage some startups to get into this last mile connectivity, or the installation of chargers at your house or office. There it means, and as you know, we are a diverse kind of residential situations. You have to do parking in the lane, in garage, in resident welfare association. So we had to hire some people from even public distribution companies. So these guys take care of the load, meters, connections, copper wire, and everything, safety. So this is how we are doing it, and everybody else is following. So in India, 98% of the charging is done at your house or at your office. 2% is outside, and And that also is developing. So there are around 12,000 chargers installed in the country. And by the way, 80% of them we have connected on our app. So if you buy an MG, there's an MG app. 80% of the Indian chargers are on that app. You can plan your route. You can book also some chargers. And we are saying for Windsor car, 1 year it's free. Just to give confidence to consumer. It's not a huge money, by the way, but just to give confidence. So Indian model is going to be slightly unique. 96-97% people will keep charging at home, I think.
Interesting. The last 3 months, you've seen passenger vehicles, basically automobiles, slow down. I mean, two-wheelers are doing very well, but the passenger car segment has basically slowed down. What's your view on that? And do you think this is temporary? The festive season, upcoming festive season, should be positive for the industry?
Yeah, the growth is muted, a little bit come down also in terms of registrations. In the last 45 days, but last 10 days also were because of the Shraddh and the bad inauspicious period, right? So yeah, there were reasons, extreme weather, elections, and all those issues. And also, no, there is no longer any waiting period for any model except the new models, right? So very few new models, there is no waiting period. So the supply is on the higher side now, and there's discounts going on. It's a very temporary position in my view. I think this month should be good. May not be a bumper Diwali or that period, but I think it should definitely be much better than last month for sure. But overall, looking at the fundamentals, my belief is that automotive, and not belief, sorry, factually it's correct also, that automotive growth is one of the biggest manufacturing sectors in the country, and it follows the GDP growth of the country, right? Not linearly, but with some lag it happens. So if the country is going to grow by 6 to 7%, automotive growth has to be 6 to 7% in general. And that's what last 10 years has shown. So we are well poised to reach 5.5 and 6 million unit by 2030, which is a big number. Right now we're about 4.2, 4.3. So 1 second, just hold on. So the thing is, fundamentals are there. Consumption is there in India. Good thing is about Indian economy is that it's led by consumption, as we know, and the premiumization is happening across the sectors, including auto sector. So people are willing to pay more price if you are giving them good product and good services.
Excellent. I'm going to open it up for Q&A. So as I said, everyone, do post your questions on the chat. I already have one from a friend who's actually on this call, and he's booked your new EV today itself. So have one customer already in the bag. He wants to know the safety of EVs, and also during heavy rains, have you tested that in the case of heavy rains, especially in cities like Mumbai?
Yeah. So, let me tell you about the regulations and for the battery regulations and safety things. See, globally, there are very stringent battery measures, like, one test, I won't throw the numbers like IP67 and all that, some standard regulations, global regulations are there. But one of the tests for the battery is that you submerge the battery, for almost 2 days in the water, approximately. So that's one of the tests. So the car is submerged, not the battery. The battery has got test. The car with the battery also is submerged, up to 1/3 of his car's height, and so all kinds of things are there. So I think yes, people talk about the battery fires or the car with EV on fire, but actually because of the newness of EV, they get reported a lot. Unfortunately, if you don't know, I must tell you that actually the fires on ICE are more than the fires on EV as a percentage, and basically it does not justify even a single fire incident. So I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that's the reality. On the EV side, touchwood, we have been very lucky, and no untoward situation has happened. But same amount of time, I think we cannot be complacent about anything. So there are a lot of safety norms on battery as well as car, and that's what I think we also do it. And these like one of our batteries come from CATL, and CATL is like the #1 producer in the world. As we know, it's Chinese, but it's one of the best in the world and biggest in the world. So anyway, so that's one part of it. Second part is in terms of any battery issue, like Windsor to start with, we are this is the second category barrier, because typically we do 8 years warranty on the battery. for Comet and ZS EV. In this case, Windsor, we have said it's a lifelong warranty on battery as long as you own it. Second buyer may have would have different terms and conditions of battery, but as long as you are owning it for 10 years, 15 years, 8 years, 5 years, X number of kilometers, we give you lifelong warranty just to give you that peace of mind on the battery, that you don't bother about the battery. And then if something happens, in accident or in flood, then obviously you need to take insurance, the flood insurance or accident insurance, and it should get covered by that. So that's how I think it goes.
That's interesting to bring it up, because the fact is a lot of people have said the resale, the second-hand value of a EV, given the fact that there's a significant deterioration in the battery, will impact the second-hand sales, a used car sale rather. So I guess you're taking that problem out, and you're saying the battery is actually on lease, the rest of the cars, the way it is. So you can always replace the battery, and then
Right. And on Windsor, we have done one more step for residual value only, because still some people may say, hey, then if the second owner is not confident about buying this car, my resale price will go down. So on Windsor, we have said that after 3 years, we give you the assurance of buying it back at 60%, which is equivalent to ICE. So we are doing that. But in general, by the way, talking about residual value in general for EVs, the issue is unfortunately that in India especially, most of the EVs, especially from competition, what you see are generation one EVs. So these are like ICE vehicles converted into EVs, where the battery, the battery density or the whole productivity is not optimized for EV. So what happens is, and the battery price is also coming down. So what happens is, in Gen 1 EVs, the prices have gone down drastically, and also because the battery prices have come down, everybody has reduced the prices of the car. So then the residual prices really look awful. In America, some rental companies like Hertz and all, they bought, or they said that they're going to buy a lot of Teslas and all, and suddenly they dumped after 1 year because their cost of ownership became an issue, and suddenly the residual prices came down. So actually, there is some truth in this and some myth about lower price of RV. But as I said, that we OEMs have to provide some solution and provide some guarantee or confidence to consumer that that this is okay, right? So just 1 second. Yeah.
The other question that's come in is with respect to your annual sales numbers. Are you
just Gautam, can you just give me a second, because there's something urgent happening, and
no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one question that's come in is with respect to your internal numbers for the next 2 years in terms of top line growth and number of EV, total number of cars sold. I mean, do you have a number that you can share?
I won't be able to share exact numbers, but what we have publicly stated is that in 3 years' time, right now we've been selling around 70,000 cars a year. We should be touching 250,000 to 300,000 based on our expanded capacity in 3 years, 4 years time frame. So that's the number, and primarily it's going to come from the new energy vehicles, which is EVs and hybrids. And
do you see hybrids basically cannibalizing EVs? Do you see that happening?
No, I think, given the diversified nature of our country's needs, policies, and consumer preferences, I think all kinds of powertrains solutions are going to be there. So we have CNG, which is pretty unique to our country. CNG is there. Then ethanol as E20 is going to be a norm for all ICE cars from next year, April, as you may know it. Then the ministry also is trying to promote flex fuel, which is like 100% ethanol. I don't know how many percentage will be there, but there will be some proportion. Diesel still is preferred in certain territories, in certain segments in our country, though it's coming down drastically. So you have petrol, you have gasoline, you have diesel, and you have hybrids. Now within hybrids, some competitor is trying to say it's a strong hybrid. Frankly, it's not a strong hybrid. In real technical auto terms, it's a mild hybrid. But those hybrids have done well, so there is some percentage of hybrid. And in future, I would say plug-in hybrids also will come. Now, plug-in hybrid is a great transition to EV, because just imagine that if suppose in your SUV, medium size SUV, if you can get a ICE engine and also a battery which can give you a confident 125 kilometers range. So 80% of the time you are really driving the car as EV. But
Yeah.
suppose you have to move from Mumbai to Pune suddenly, or your boss tells you to go here and there, I mean, you can run the car on petrol and you don't have to bother about charging. Or few days, because of whatever reasons, you have forgotten to charge or you're not able to charge, you can run the car on the petrol. So plug-in hybrid also, I think, is going to be added to this portfolio. So ICE is here to stay for sure. So because
Yeah.
right now the EV is 2%. Just imagine in 2030 when you are 6 million cars, let's say, just for the heck of discussion, EVs become 15 or 20%. So 15% of 6 million is still less than a million. And then your hybrids can be 8-10%. Plug-in hybrid can be 8-10%. CNG will be 8-10%. Diesel still maybe, I think, 5-6%. Though diesel will come down because 2027 onwards we have another set of harsh regulations. So diesel will come down, but still it may be there 5-7%. So that's how the matrix is going to be. But one question which I also don't know the answer is, there will be a tipping point. And after the tipping point, I think when more models come, when more competitors join EV race, then
Yeah.
suddenly, because of total cost of ownership, I think consumers may start rushing towards EV. And my my feeling would be it's around 10-12% tipping point.
Understood. The other question that's come in that's interesting as well is, if the battery is not made locally, um, how much of a dependence do we still have on China for spares, for batteries? And, is that an issue going forward, given our geopolitical relationships with China at this point?
Yeah. And by the way, this is a global issue. It's not only India issue. India, we are more sensitive, I know, because of being its neighbor.
Yeah.
But I think it's a global issue. So my my thing goes that, like oil, do we get oil from one country? No, we get oil from various countries, right?
Right.
Likewise, battery, China may be the best at this point of time, but you have battery suppliers from Korea, from Japan, and from China. So depending on like your strategy, you can choose a battery supplier from one of these three countries. Cells have to be made in India, and this is what the government of India has done. They have issued incentives under PLI for manufacturing cells here. Battery assembly is already happening. In fact, we're also doing battery assembly, but we import cells and do the assembly in our plant. And there are third-party also suppliers who are assembling the battery in India. So battery assembly is happening. Nobody produces cell. So for cell, I think it can be LG, it can be Samsung, it can be Panasonic, it can be 3 or 4 from China,
Yeah.
who probably would provide technology to the Indian companies to produce cells in India. So we all manufacturers are going to buy cells from India in the next 3 or 4 years' time.
Interesting. One other
But then,
question
but
that's
then, but then
yeah,
again, you can go deep that, okay, then sell what happens to chemicals, what happens to lithium and all. And then China has more control on not only raw material, but more than that, refining capacity. So so
that's right.
so then you need to get into those kind of things. So in some way or the other, you cannot ignore China for sure. That's my short answer.
Yeah.
You have linkages. You need to keep those linkages in mind. You need technology from China. They are very strong on the cost side, and if they can be business partners in some way or the other, I think that will be great.
I agree. The other question that's come in is the recent JSW JFE Steel JV, is it going to help MG integrate backwards into electric motor production? Is that something on the cards?
See, one or two things which we have to be clear. I know JSW is GSW. Some companies are listed companies,
Yeah.
and also for proper governance and compliance, we have to have arm's length relationship for sure. So
Yeah.
that's the over that's the architecture we have. Yes, they would have competitive advantage in certain commodities and certain things, and definitely they'll be the preferred supplier if if they show that advantage, and it's good for MG Motor India. Also, in terms of commodities, they have shown interest that they want to set up their own cell facility. They want to have some chemicals also. So as and when they do it, we can have an agreement once again if it is if cost wise they are the best. So that's possible. On motors and all electronic parts, I don't think so. I don't know whether JSW wants to get into motor production on their own, but there are a lot of suppliers in India, like Mindas of this world, and Bosch, Minda, and there are some other Tata components, Taco. There are some suppliers who want to get into electronic components for EV, including electric motor. So they are all the possible suppliers. With the help of GSW, what advantage we get is that we can assure them the volumes because we are going to scale up. And then we can have some strategic suppliers, one of these guys, and who probably will produce motors. But what I can tell you for sure is that the focus is on localization, focus is to make in India, and that's what we are going to do in the next few years.
In terms of hydrogen fuel cell cars, is how big a deal is that? Where is that a threat? I mean, is in 2030 or whenever that comes through?
So first, I heard and had serious debate about hydrogen fuel cell in 2002. I was in Japan, and then we were talking about it, and still we're at the same stage, unfortunately. For trucks and for big trucks, it makes sense, and we have got some solution. My guess is we are at least 10 years away.
Okay. The other question I had was with respect to your luxury brand, MG Select. Anything you can share with us at this point?
So, we see an opportunity. We see an opportunity that there's a gap between the mainstream cars and the luxury cars. It's like the Michael Kors, area. You are not Gucci, you're not Prada, but you're Michael Kors, right? So there's an opportunity, and MG Select is a premium channel. What we're establishing, it's not brand is MG, and we have lots of products in our arsenal, in our portfolio, where I think there will be a huge demand and requirement in Indian market. Also, the customer experience is one area in automotive side, especially on the luxury side, where some of the current existing luxury dealers suck, where people want better services. So I think in terms of customer experience, in terms of product features and different kind of cars, there is a scope. And as I mentioned, premiumization across the sectors in India, across industries is happening. People are willing to pay a good price if the product and services are good. So that's an opportunity we are going to tap into, and we should be launching 2 cars next year.
I think you guys have a pretty ambitious target of 1 million cars, of sales of 1 million cars by 2030. I guess my question really is, do you think that's going to be driven by market share gains, or is it going to be driven by the fact that this market itself is going to expand dramatically?
I think I won't like to talk about that because Mr. Sajjan Jindal made a statement on that. So I will not go, to a million car. Probably he's the best guy to answer that. But our MG 2.0 next 3 years, 4 years goal is expand the capacity to 300,000 and have a portfolio to fill the plant and sell those cars profitably and be hugely profitable. So that's what our goal is.
Excellent. I think the question really is, which I still want to get. We have 2 minutes to go before I let you go. But question is, do you? I mean, given what we've seen over the past 3 months of a slowdown, and I asked you this before, is it temporary, or is this a point where the addressable market, the TAM in India, is only so much, and getting past 4.2 million cars is going to be difficult going forward? Or are you guys internally more optimistic?
So take it this way: 4.2 million should become 5.5 or 6, or let's say anywhere between 5 and 6, right? In next 5-6 years time, 5-6 years time, yeah. And when we talk about 300,000, which is still 5% market share, 5 or 6% market share. So that's not huge, by the way. But for us, to go from 70,000 to 300,000 is huge. Second thing is, important thing again is who in India has done it, you know. So only two players have done it, Maruti and Hyundai, right?
Yeah.
And Kia and Hyundai are together now, and Toyota was one trick pony till they joined Maruti. Otherwise it was Innova and Fortuner one platform, and even Honda City is struggling right now. They are actually this month onwards are going to be below MG. They have been in the country since last 25 years, and Honda City was an iconic car, and like so Honda is going. Even Honda is struggling. Let's not talk about GM, Ford, Skoda, Citroen, Renault, and all, because there are a lot of reasons. So if we are able to do, apart from these four players, two Indians and two these, to reach a 300,000, that will be a great achievement in my view, which is not, and we should be profitable, because contribution margin by still we make money on every car,
Yeah.
structure, bottom line by, and EBITDA positive we became, so I think that's what I would be happy with. But yes, Mr. Sajjan Jindal is not going to be happy with 300,000. His aim is to be the EV leader of this country, to revolutionize the market, localize a lot, make in India. So he has got much more ambitions than what I'm stating here right now. But I'm saying step at a time, and let's at least try to do this.
Great. Thank you so much. It's 6:45, so we don't want to keep you beyond your stated time. But we wish you all the best in this journey, and we hope to hopefully have another call at some point, maybe in the next 12 months, and review how you're doing. But honestly, all the best from all of us
Thanks
here.
a lot. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye.